If I was going to choose one pie crust recipe to use for the rest of my life, it is this one. It's made with 100% butter, is easy, and I'm telling you, the flaky layers are amazing. You can use it for sweet pies, savory pies. We've used it for almost every pie recipe on Inspired Taste. We've got our sweet potato pie, which is a single crust pie, and we also have our apple pie, which is a double crust pie with a lattice crust. This pie crust makes those so simple.
Here's how to make pie crust using a food processor. We'll show you how to do it by hand next. Measure your flour using the weight given in our recipe or by using this fluff and scoop method. To do it, stir the flour, then spoon the fluffed up flour into your measuring cup. Then swipe away the excess flour using the other end of your spoon. We'll need 1.5 cups of flour in the food processor and an extra cup of flour saved in a bowl to the side. Splitting up the flour like this is our secret to the best flaky pie crust. Toss in a tablespoon of sugar and a half teaspoon of salt. Then pulse a few times to mix. The sugar is optional. I add it when making sweet pies. Now cut 1 cup of cold butter into small pieces and scatter over the flour. Process the butter into the flour until all of the flour is coated in the butter. The mixture turns a bit yellow, and when you press it together, it holds a shape. Just like this. Now we can add the remaining flour. Splitting up our flour like this guarantees our pie crust will be flaky, light, and tender. It's all about creating the right balance of gluten for structure, but not overdoing it. You can read more about this in the article on Inspired Taste. We are ready to add some water. We want it pretty cold, which is why I've added ice. Scatter tablespoons of water over the dough. I start with 6 and go from there. If any ice cubes sneak in, take them out. Now use a spoon or spatula to press the dough together. Adding more water is needed. When the dough looks crumbly but will hold mostly together on one side, you have enough water. The day we filmed this, the air was dry, so we needed a few more tablespoons of water than usual. This is exactly what you're looking for. Now empty the bowl onto a work surface and bring it together with your hands. We aren't kneading here, just pushing the dough together into one big lump. This recipe makes enough for 2 single crust pies or 1 double crust pie. Do your best to cut it in half, then press each lump of dough into a disc and wrap well. Refrigerate until you need it, or freeze. It lasts in the fridge for 3 days and in the freezer for 3 months. Then you're ready to make your favorite pie. Now, if you don't have a food processor, we want to show you how to make the pie dough by hand. Just like when using a processor, I've got about 60% of my flour in a large bowl and save the remaining flour to the side. Add the salt and sugar, then whisk until blended. Use a pastry cutter to cut the butter into the flour. This takes a bit of elbow grease, but you'll get there in a minute or 2. The mixture won't be as blended as when using the food processor, but it can get pretty close. See how the flour has turned from white to yellowish? That means all of our flour is coated. Now we can add the remaining flour. Just cut it in so it's mixed throughout the bowl. Now you can add your water. I scatter 6 tablespoons of ice water over the mixture and then go from there. Press everything together until it begins to hold itself up. Add more water if you think it needs it. This is what you are looking for. Now empty the somewhat crumbly mixture onto your work surface, bring it together with your hands, cut it in half, and then wrap. I form my dough into discs since it helps when rolling out the dough into a circle later on. Now we have our pie dough, let's show you how easy it is to roll out. Flour a clean work surface and then place one of your dough discs down. Now since this was just in the fridge, it's going to be a bit hard to roll it first. That's why I gently press the dough with a rolling pin to soften it. When it's more pliable, begin to roll it out, rolling away from you and then turning the dough to keep a rough circle. The dough will probably crack in places around the edge. No problem, just press them back together. Then keep rolling until the dough is at least 1 inch larger than your pie dish. As you're rolling, do a check to make sure the bottom isn't sticking. Just move it from side to side. If it's sticking, add a bit more flour. If it's getting too soft, place it onto a baking sheet and chill for a few minutes. Now roll the dough up and around your rolling pin, and then unroll it back into the pie dish. Gently move the dough so that it goes down into the dish. Try not to stretch the dough, as that will bounce back in the oven. Now you can trim any excess, and if you're making a single crust pie, add some decoration. For a double crust pie, you would wait to do this until the top crust has been added. I build up the sides a bit by folding the edges over onto themselves. For areas that are a little light, use the excess dough you cut away earlier to build those areas up. Then use a finger and knuckles to crimp. You can experiment, but it's pretty simple to make larger or smaller crimps depending on how hard you press. This is the base for a sweet potato pie, but for a double crust pie, let's take a look at our apple pie. It uses the same pie crust and it works beautifully. For this apple pie, we make it double crust with a lattice crust on top. It's easier than you might think, and we walk you through the whole process in our apple pie video. For questions and to see how many people have made and loved this pie crust recipe, see the recipe on Inspired Taste. And if you like the look of that sweet potato pie, we have a recipe and video for that too. See you next time.